planning and also management tools for information system projects. So we are looking at the tools that are used to do planning and the tools that are used to actually do management. Okay, so we're going to look at the tools that are used in information system projects. So the first thing that we're going to look at is goals for a project. A project has a goal. So what is the importance of making sure that you are specifying clear goals for an information systems project? That is what we're going to look at. Now we need to start by defining what a project goal is. So a project goal is actually we define it as achieving a desired outcome. Achieving a desired outcome at a specific end date, employing a specific amount of resources. So, in other words, what I'm trying to say is uh, using some specified amount of resources in a specified time to achieve a desired outcome. That is what we call a project goal. So it refers to achieving a desired outcome at a specific end date and employing a specific amount of resources. Now, if we look at the project goal from the definition that I have given, it has three types of goals. It has three, or I can say three categories of goals, or rather, I can say we can divide it into three categories of goals. The first one is the performance goal. The performance goal deals with the outcome. So achieving a desired outcome, that is the performance goal. Then we have the time goal at a specific end date. That is the time goal. So maybe by this particular date, I should have achieved this specific outcome. So that is the time goal. Then employing a specific amount of resources is a resource goal. So you are saying I have ABCD as my resources, and I need to use ABCD as my resources. That is a resource goal to achieve this particular outcome, that is a performance goal, by this period of time or by this date. That is the time goal. So when you're talking about project goal, we are looking at it on three different angles. One, the performance goal, that is what the desired outcome we want to achieve. Number two, the time goal, that is the specific end dates that we put for the project. And third is the resource goal, is actually the specific amount of resources that we have that we want to use to achieve that particular outcome. Now, a goal, we normally describe a goal. A goal is actually the effort, okay? The effort that you direct towards an end. The effort that you direct towards an end is a goal. We describe a goal as the effort that you direct towards an end. So the term goal has been used in project management, and it is actually related to some different values. Values like we have the performance, I've talked about, the time, and the resources. So when you're mentioning a goal, it is related to three values. The goal should be talking about the performance, should be talking about the time, should be talking about the resources. What you want to achieve, what is the desired outcome, and in what period of time, and what resources are there for you to use to achieve what you want to achieve. Okay. So I've talked about the goal specifying the specific or the desired outcome, that is performance. I've talked about having a specific end date, that is the time, and then you have a specific assigned amount of resources, that is the resource goal. Okay. Now, the goal, whenever you set a goal, the goal will try to answer a question like, what is the main aim of the project? And the main aim of the project will give you the performance. Now, what is the main aim of the project? Now, sometimes you have a project that actually has more than one goal. You might have a project that has more than one goal. So we have another term that we need to look at, that is the term objective. So what is an objective? So an objective is a tangible and a measurable result of a project that support the agreed goal and must meet the planned end time, budget, and quality restrictions. So the goal is going to answer the question how something is to be done. Okay, how something is to be done. So when you're talking about a goal, we are looking at that defined, tangible, and measurable results of a particular project. But this objective, this objective is supposed to make sure that it is agreeing with the goal. It is also meeting the deadline yenye umeweka, is meeting the deadline, and also it is working under the budget uliweka. It should be able to actually use the resources that were planned to be used. Okay. Now, there is an effective way for setting goals, and I'm sure you might have come across this word, SMART. We have what we call the SMART method. So when you are designing actually objectives, you need to make sure you are designing SMART performance objectives. And the word SMART stands for specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time bound. In other words, your goal should be specific. Your goal should be measurable. Your goal should be achievable. You don't set goals that cannot be achieved. Cut 1, you had 30 and you want to have 100 in cut 2. And the difference between the periods you're doing cut 1 and cut 2 is only 2 weeks. That is not achievable. Yeah. Your goal should be realistic, and it should be time bound. It should have a time frame. If you say I want to build a 3-bedroom house, don't just say I'm building a 3-bedroom house. You will never build it. You say I want to build a 3-bedroom house by this particular date, and I am going to use ABCD to do that. Okay. Now, when we set our goals for our organizations, it is going to serve 4 basic areas. Okay, when you set goals for the organizations, it's going to serve 4 basic areas. Remember, it is going to focus on the functions, the purpose, and also the importance. So the basic functions, in other words, the basic functions, purpose, and importance of organizational goals. That is what I'm talking about. The basic functions. You can also say purpose. You can also say importance. So when you're talking about functions, the same thing. We talk about purpose. We talk about importance of organizational goals. So organizational goals are going to serve 4 basic functions, or maybe basic purposes, or maybe 4 basic importances. And the first one is they are going to give a guidance and direction. The goal that you set for the organization is what will direct you. It is what it will actually depict what activities are you going to carry to actually get involved into that are going to support your goal. It is going to direct the company. It is going to direct the organization. There are things the organization might want to do, but at the end of the day, they cannot do it because those things do not support the goal. Number 2, it is going to facilitate planning, because you know what you want to achieve at a particular time using a particular set of resources. Then you are able to plan ahead of time. You are able to plan ahead of time. Somebody who doesn't know what they want to do, they cannot plan. Number 3, the goal will motivate and will inspire employees. So both employees, they know that we are working towards achieving this goal. That is their motivation. Everything that you do must have a motivation. So it is going to motivate the employees. It's going to be an inspiration to the employees as they work to make sure that they are achieving that goal. So the goal will also help organizations to evaluate and take control performance. So organizations will be able to look at how they operate, if it in terms of profits and everything, do some evaluations and change where they need to be changed. Now, we have different types of goals that you can set. Maybe you can set a goal for your project team if you're working with people. You can still set a goal for yourself if you're working alone. But the most important thing that you need to know is at the end of the day, you need to have something you are aiming for. You need to have something you're aiming for. Now, it is good practice that when a year comes to an end, you set goals for the other coming year. You say, this year I want to do A, B, C, D. So by April, I want to have done this. By May, by maybe June, I want to have done this. By December next year, I want to have done this. Then you give them time frames. Then you also specify this project, the money for this project will come from this. The money, I'll take up this amount of money, put it here. You see, in other words, I'm trying to say, it's important to make sure that you're having something you are aiming at, or you're aiming for. Okay. Now, goals are supporting what you are actually aiming for. Goals are supporting what you are aiming for. Goals are supporting what you're planning for, and what you are trying to achieve. And this is how they support that. The first thing is, goals will help people to define a vision of where they want to be and imagine a path of how to get there. One, if you set a goal, it is giving you a vision of where you want to be. Where you want to be, at what, by what time. Okay? And then once you know where you want to go, then you will be able to imagine, or come up with a path, or identify a path that you're actually going to follow to get to where you want to go. Okay? Remember the famous people saying that, if you don't know where you are going, you don't know when you arrive. If you don't know where you are going, you don't know when you arrive. So by the end of the year, you want to gauge your performance this year. You want to gauge how you actually did things this year. For you to be able to gauge, you must have goals. You look at your goals. See, I said this and this, and I achieved this. I achieved this. I did not achieve this. You are doing some how do I put it? You are trying to check what made you not to achieve whatever you did not achieve. So it will help you to define to have a vision of where you want to be, and then it will help you to imagine a path that you're going to follow to get to where you want to be. Number two, the goals are going to encourage people to think about the meaning of their work, and also how you are going to actually tie that work into the bigger picture. You are not just working for the sake of working, because you have a goal. Now you see there is a meaning for your work. You can think about the meaning of your work. Number three, goals are going to build in accountability. How? If you don't meet the goals that you set, okay, you're going to try to find out what are the reasons that made me not to meet. I said by June I'll have built a two-bedroom house. What are the reasons that made me not to build the house? Or what are the reasons that made me put down the foundation, and then I hung there, I did not continue? So the goals help you to build accountability. You are becoming accountable of your own area, of your own mistakes. Okay, how did I fail to achieve this? Now, if you ask those people who are really more principled, they would tell you if they fail to do something they actually planned to do, they might even punish themselves. Some of them would punish themselves, would just give themselves a punishment, just to make sure they are really serving what they are supposed to serve. So goals will build accountability. Number four, goals are going to encourage people to make sure they are measuring their work, and they are also thinking beyond the simple execution, thinking beyond just doing things. You are working, you're not just working for the sake of working. Every day you wake up, you go to work. Yes, fine. What is your goal? What are you trying to achieve at workplace? What difference are you intending to make, maybe in a particular period of time? All that is what we are talking about. Now, there is importance and there is value of us having SMART goals. Remember, we said SMART stands for specific, measurable, and A we said is for what?
Achievable.
Achievable,
Achievable, jamani.
realistic, and time
Realistic
bound.
and what? And,
So the value of SMART goals is, one, the goals are, they are the project. They are actually the project destination. They are the project destination. Remember, I said, if you don't know where you are going, you don't know when you arrive. So because we know where we are going, we have the goals. So that is the project destination. Okay. Once we have achieved the goal, then we know we have accomplished the project. You're looking at the desired final outcome. And once you have actually achieved that desired final outcome, then you know I have achieved, I have come to the end of the project. So they are the project destination. Number two, they are the roadmap. They are the roadmap. When you have objectives for your project, they are going to support the actions that you're going to take. They're going to support the actions that you're going to take to make sure that you are actually accomplishing those objectives. The objectives are actually giving you what we call an action plan, or maybe what we can call a high level roadmap. Okay, so they show you what are the specific steps, what are the specific tasks that I must accomplish to make sure that I am actually reaching my goal. Okay, uh then I
Objective.
talked about, sorry.
Repeat objective. Ama si important
No,
sana.
this was an example, eh? This was an example that is trying to explain this roadmap. See, yeah, I said let's consider the example of a website redevelopment project with the goal of increasing sales on our e-commerce site. What could some supporting objectives look like? So these are the objectives of that particular website. Survey customers, compare products and pricing, use the 80-20 rule, identify our unique selling proposition, carry out search engine optimization. So this is just an example that I had given. That is why unaona nimeiacha. Okay, so we talked of S for being specific. Now, what is a specific goal? A specific goal is a goal that is well defined and is clearly understood. That is a specific goal. M is for measurable. So you can actually measure the results of your goal or maybe your objective. So when actually you accomplish it, then you can know you have accomplished it because you are able to measure the results. Then we have A, which is for achievable. So that means you have the resources and the time that is needed to actually achieve whatever you want to achieve. You might have the resources, but you don't have the time. So you need to look at, do I have the resources? Do I really have the time that I can actually achieve what I am saying I will achieve by this particular time? Then R is for realistic. You make sure you set up goals that are going to fit, they're going to be reasonable. In other words, you're setting goals that are going to be reasonable. It's like this famous song that people have been singing this year, 2024. You know, somebody sang a song about himself and he said, alisema ni mwaka wa kuforce, watu watamuita bosi. So everybody is saying that, wataniita bosi. Now the question is, how will somebody call you a boss? You're not employed first. You don't have an investment. You're just waking up, sitting at home, waiting for your parents to feed you. And you're singing watakuita boss. You see, now that is being unrealistic. You are setting a goal that is unrealistic. So you need to have a realistic goal, a goal that is achievable by considering the resources you have and the time that is available for you. Then you make sure you have a goal that is really achievable. Now, the goal and the objective is also supposed to be time bound. By time bound, namanisha, you must have a deadline. You must have a deadline. You must try to overcome the spirit of procrastination. You are saying, I'll do this tomorrow, and you don't even say tomorrow what time. Then when it comes to tomorrow, you say, I'm going to do it tomorrow. You know, tomorrow never come. You're going to say tomorrow, 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 tomorrow. I'll read tomorrow. I'll revise tomorrow. By the time you realize you only have 3 days to sit for your exams. So all that is happening because you did not give yourself a time frame. And it is good practice that uh, when you start your day in the morning, you take your notebook, sit down, take like 30 minutes, plan your day. So this time I'm going to do this, after this I'm going to do this, after this I'm going to do this. Then by the end of the day, before you go to bed, you check. You give yourself marks. I did this one I did not do. Why didn't I do? If possible, give yourself a small punishment. Become accountable for yourself. It's very important. It's helpful. Right now, it might look like something that is more of stupidity, but the moment you find yourself in bigger projects that require more focus and attention, you will realize that you really need to work with these things. So if there is anything that is actually preventing you to to achieve goals, like for example, smartphones. Nowadays, smartphones are really a bother. They are really a bother even at workplaces. People are supposed to be working. Instead of them working, they are busy TikToking, they are busy in Facebook, they are busy in WhatsApp, you see. And somebody is not able to control the time they take on these devices. So you need to teach yourself, teach yourself on how to actually try to control yourself. There are applications, there are settings you can set in phones that they are going to give you a feedback of a weekly feedback of how many hours you spent in your phone. And they're going to even show you which application you spent a lot of time. Maybe in YouTube, they're going to show you in this application you spent a lot of time. So you're going to make sure you are trying to reduce that time. So give yourself deadlines. If you're not going to give yourself deadlines, then expect to continue skipping that work, to continue delaying that work, to continue denying that work, because you don't have a specific feedback. I mean, a time bound. Now, let's move on to selecting an appropriate methodology for a project for the given circumstances. How are you going to select a method for a project that is actually appropriate depending on the circumstances that are in place? So we have the project management methodology, the method that you want to use to manage your project. And basically, this is a set of techniques, or we can say practices. They are techniques and practices that are used by organizations and even some project teams to make sure they effectively manage a project, and more so, making sure they are increasing the chances of meeting the goals, the intended goals. So when you're talking about a project management methodology, you're basically talking about a set of techniques and practices that an organization or maybe a project team or even an individual is going to use to make sure that they manage a project. And the main aim of doing that is to make sure we are increasing the chances of having the goals that for this project being met. So there are so many methodologies that you can choose from. Now, because there are so many methodologies, one needs to be very careful when it comes to actually choosing which method is the best one. So before you decide, let me now settle on this particular methodology. There are two things that you need to consider, two very important things that you need to consider before you say, let me work with this methodology. Now, the first one is you need to look at the several internal and external factors that can affect the methodology that you are choosing. Paka 10, Paka 12. You look at the internal and external factors that can affect the methodology that you are actually choosing. You are choosing this methodology, yes. What are those internal factors that can affect this methodology? Number two, what are those external factors that can really affect this methodology? Then, after looking at the several internal and external factors that can affect the methodology, you need to move on and look at uh, um, you need to move on and do an assessment on that particular methodology that you have chosen. And the reason as to why we are doing an assessment is because we want to make sure that this methodology is actually the best fit for the needs. Somebody's mic is on. Kindly switch it off unless you want to talk. And if you want to talk, you just lift your hand. Just switch off that mic to endelea. So I said the next thing is you make sure you are able to assess the methodology so that you just be sure that what you have is best fit for the needs. Now, there are different things or different factors that are going to affect the method selection, the methodology selection. There are factors that are going to affect the choice of the methodology. Okay? And again, remember, if those factors can affect the choice, then we have other factors that can also be affected by your selection. So before you make any decision, make sure that you have answered questions. Questions like one, how is your company structured? What is the structure of your company in terms of leadership, in terms of management? How is it structured? Number two, what are the objectives of your company? Because if you're coming up with a project, the main aim is creating a project that project is going to support the objectives of the company. The moment you are creating a project that is against the objectives of the company, then you're not achieving anything. You're not actually increasing the value of that company. Then ask yourself, what are the strengths? What are the weaknesses? What are the opportunities? And what are the threats in your business? Do I have any strengths in my business? What are they? Do I have any weaknesses in my business? What are they? What opportunities do I have in my business? And what are the threats? Ask yourself questions like, who are your primary customers? Who are your primary customers? You might be having many customers globally, but there is that particular group of people that are your basic customers. They never go. They never go. Like, okay, you might have been a customer for a particular business at one time. Maybe you are going to Nakuru and you drop by, you pass by a shop in Nakuru and buy something for yourself, and you travel. Now, you are a customer there, but you're not a primary customer, because the chances that you're going to go back there to buy something are very few. It is until you are traveling again. And at times you might travel, but again, you don't find yourself buying from the same shop that you bought. So you're not a primary customer. So ask yourself, who are my primary customers that come rain, come sunshine, they're gonna buy from me? Again, you need to ask yourself questions like, how does each methodology risk the success of the projects? We have this particular methodology. How is it going to affect how is it going to bring risk, or what is its risk in terms of the success of this particular project? We have this methodology. So you are comparing the risk, or you are doing what we call risk assessment on the various methodologies that you have at hand to see how each of them is going to affect success of the project. You need to ask questions like, how complex is the project? How complicated is it? Is it small? Is it big? Does it require much? Yeah, then also look at the size. What is the size of the project, and what is the cost of the project? Okay, then look at, do I have the internal infrastructure? Do I have the technologies? Do I have the processes that actually support this particular methodology that I want? Now, you have asked yourself those questions, you've got answers. Now, you need to go on and assess the methodologies, because I have said assess the methodology and see, is it posing any risk of achieving the success of this project? So now let's talk about how to assess the methodologies. How are you going to assess the methodology? So after you've done the evaluations, you've looked at the factors, you need to move into a step or into a process that you are going to identify what we call project-specific drivers. Now, project-specific drivers are actually things like, okay, things and people that are the main influence on the project, that without them or without their cooperation, the project cannot be completed. Now, the first project drivers that you can have is, one, you can have the stakeholder. Okay, the stakeholders' needs and even the desires goals. That is a project driver, because we are doing that project for somebody, and the people we are doing the projects for are the stakeholders. They have needs for the project. There are things that they need to see in that project. There are goals that they have for that particular project. Now, those are your drivers. Number two, you have deliverables. Remember when we were doing waterfall and the other software SDLC models, we talked about um, deliverables. In each phase, what deliverable do you have? So deliverables are the outcome, the output of a phase, the final output of a phase. That is a deliverable. So deliverable are also going to are also project drivers. Number three, we have the timeline. Yes, if you're supposed to actually finish the project in February, then you are compelled with that. You might be required to increase the number of hours you are working to make sure you are meeting that timeline. So it is a driver. We have the quality aspects. You're going to look at what is the required quality of the project. Then we have budget limitations. This is the amount of money that we have to spend. These are the available resources that we have to spend. So you're going to make sure that any decision you take has actually looked at the resources. Am I going to overuse, or am I going to underuse the resources? So each particular method that you're going to select needs to look on all these things. Okay, it needs to look at the goals. It needs to look like what are the quality goals, what are the efficiency goals, what are the cost reduction goals, and what are the waste reduction goals. Now make sure the methodology that you are selecting is going to actually match with the project goals. Okay, that's clear. Number two, we need to move into defining and documenting the success criteria. You need to make sure you are capturing your success criteria. Measure your success criteria against the methodologies that you have. You have this method. What is your success criteria when using this method? You have this method. What is your success criteria when using method B? What is your success criteria when using method A? What is your success criteria when using method C? So make sure you have the success criteria and you are actually measuring that success criteria with the methods that you have. Okay, you are able to measure that criteria with the methods that you have or against the methods that you have. Okay, it is very important to have that step because it will help you to make sure you're making the best decision. Okay, so make sure you are comparing, you are contrasting the success criteria of all those projects. Now, what are your options? Now, what do I mean by what are your options? Identify the methodologies that you actually have or you would really want to use. All of them, those are your options now. So you're going to have numerous project methodologies that are actually available, and each of those methodologies have their own strengths. Okay, but now, okay, I'm going to talk about a number of methodologies. I am not going to talk deeply about them because some of them we discussed. So these are, when we talk about your options, we are talking about the methodologies that you have in your disposal, from which you are going to select the methodology you're going to work with. So there are a number of them. The first one is the agile methodology. Now in agile methodology, uh, we have the iterative process that makes sure we are able to adjust to make adjustments rapidly throughout the project. Now, agile method is one of the method that is extensively used in software development projects. Okay, but it is not only used in software development projects; it is also used in other areas. What you need to know about agile is that it is an iterative process. So we have processes that are actually repeated. We talked about incremental, iterative, and incremental SDLC model when we were discussing this. So that's why you see I'm not explaining a lot when it comes to what it means by iterative. Yeah, but what you need to know is that in Agile, we have processes that are being repeated. The processes there are repeatable. And the reason as to why we are having these processes repeatable is because we want to make any rapid adjustments. If you see any issue, you want to rapidly adjust that issue. Now, when we are doing that, we are making sure that we are reducing the risk and we are also allowing an increase in terms of focusing on the quality of the product. We have another method known as the Kanban method. Now, Kanban method is a method that will use boards. We call them visual boards. At times, we call them cards. So we're going to use visual boards or cards to make sure we are displaying the status of the work that is being done. Okay, so it is really a project that is very important when it comes to teams, because the teams can look at those board and actually get a glimpse of the progress of the project. How far is it gone just by looking at the visual boards or the cards? Okay, so we are simplifying the processes and we are also trying to trigger the next step for the team to take using those boards. We have the lean method that actually came around in 1980s, and when it came around, it was never used by an IT company. It was used by a Toyota company. Toyota is a car company, and the goal of having the lean method was to make sure that the company wanted to add value to customers as they are reducing the waste. Now, if you want to add value to customers, what you're trying to mean is you want the customer to get high quality products, but with less with less payment, right? With less amount. They get quality products, but they pay less to get high quality products. But at the same time, as a company, you have not made losses. So again, after the Toyota company applied the lean method, we have had other industries coming in which have also applied the same methods, not just in manufacturing, but in so many other areas. Now, we have a body of knowledge that an institute that is actually trying to manage this project. Now, we call it Project Management Body of Knowledge, PMBOK, Project Management Body of Knowledge. So this PMBOK was actually developed by PMI. PMI is the Project Management Institute. It is an institute that manages projects. So it created the project management body of knowledge. Okay, and once it created the project management board of knowledge, it divided the processes in that particular project management board of knowledge into different groups. And the first group is initiating, number two is planning, executing, then we have monitoring and controlling, then we have the closeout. So we have teams. When we are actually using this methodology, the teams are going to work throughout these phases in a structured and orderly manner. In other words, they are going to begin with initiating. Once they are done with initiating, they move to planning. Once they are done to planning, they move to executing. And once they are done with that, they move to monitoring and controlling, then close out. They won't skip any. They are going to follow that structured manner. The other method we have is Prince 2. Now, Prince 2 is one of the methods that is highly tested, by the way. Prince 2. I've gone through so many past papers of ABMA past papers, and I've seen question in Prince 2, Prince 2, Prince 2. I'm sure even for the CAT you have done, that question might have been there. Prince 2. So it is a methodology. Prince 2 is a methodology that is actually aiming at making sure you are maintaining the organization and actually the control of projects, but through processes. You have processes, okay? You have stages that are structured formally. So if you look at the Prince 2 methodology, it is guided by stages, it is guided by principles. And it has 7 principles in total. And the first principle in the Prince 2 is one, there is an existing business justification. What do we mean by there is an existing business justification? You looked at the project and the problem that was existing, and you got a justification or a need. Okay, so you proved that this project is needed in this business. So you have a business justification. Number two, you have team learning, or there's going to you're going to have team learning throughout the project. What does it mean by team learning? You need to know the you are going you'll be forced to know the people you are working with. You'll be forced to get some skills from other people. In other words, you're not going to rely on your own and what you know and what you can do. Number three, we have roles that are clearly defined. They are known. Everybody knows if I am the project manager, these are my roles. If I am maybe in charge of documentation, this is what I do. So you have roles that are clearly defined. Then all work is planned in stages. In Prince 2, you don't just work from the blues. You have all the work planned following a series of stages. Then we have board members also that are going to be there, and their work is to make sure they are managing issues. Then we have a continuous focus on quality. Prince 2. You have a continuous focus on quality. Okay? Now, each time you have an approach, each time you are using Prince 2, then everything you do must be tailored to each project. Must be having an approach to achieving that project. So these are the principles for Prince 2. The other method is Scrum. Now, when we were learning the Agile SDLC, we talked about Scrum. I'm sure we talked about something else, Kanban, and we said Scrum and Kanban were methodologies that were used in Agile. Okay, so the Scrum is actually a part of the Agile framework that we talked about, and it is using we have 30-day sprints that is actually used to prioritize the tasks. So here, instead of having a project manager in Scrum, we have a Scrum master. We don't have a project manager. We have a Scrum master, and the work of the Scrum master is to make sure is going to oversee and even facilitate some small teams. So we are dividing the project into, I mean, the people that we're going to use for the project into small teams, and each team is going to have a Scrum master. Each team that you are going to have also is going to be given a specific task that is independent. So each team is going to work on a specific task, and that task won't be dependent on any other task. Okay. Now, once you are working on that specific task as a team, you're going to meet with the Scrum Master, and the Scrum Master is going to look at the progress of your task before you even move to any other step. We also have another methodology, which is the Six Sigma. This is the other methodology. It is basically a data-driven approach. So it uses tools. The Six Sigma uses tools and even techniques that are actually coming in to bring help to the businesses and making sure that we have a successful implementation of the process improvements. Now, the reason as to why we have tools in here, we are trying to reduce the defects. We are trying to to reduce the waste. We are even trying to reduce the time. So as we are reducing all these things, we are lowering the costs, and we are making sure that our customers. Okay, my connection was lost. Now it's back. So the other method is waterfall. I hope everybody is still in. Did I lose anybody? You guys talk to me. Okay, we lost Rukia. Okay, let's go on. So we have the waterfall, and the waterfall has been at work from 1970s, and it is actually the most widely recognized. And we've talked about waterfall previously. I'm not going to dwell on it, but we discussed in the previous lessons, we discussed the phases of the waterfall, the requirements analysis phase, the designing phase, the testing, the implementation, and the maintenance. Okay. And one thing we said is that all those phases are actually being implemented following that particular order. So we have other choices, the CCPM, CPM, XPM, XP, EXM, PMOS, KPMG. All those are other choices of methodologies that are there. We have the circle back methodology. I've just covered the major methodologies. Now, again, we need to look at the strengths and the weakness of a project management methodology. The strengths and the weaknesses of project management methodologies. Just a minute, allow me to take this call. Hi. Hello. Yeah, I was in class. Let me look into that later. Yeah. Okay, so we are looking at the strengths and the weaknesses of project management methodologies. So let's look at what are the major project management methodologies and what actually brings the difference between those methodologies. And the first one that I'm going to look at is uh, the most common project management methodologies that we're going to look at. We have, I have actually mentioned them. We have the Agile, Waterfall, critical chain, critical path, lean project management. So I just want us to look at the difference. Okay. Now, if we look at agile management, under agile management, we have a number of methodologies that are agile management. We have Scrum, Kanban, we have Scrum Ban, and we have extreme programming. So for the Scrum, as we've talked about before, it is actually one of the method that is mostly used, or the most common one. And in Scrum, we have teams that are going to frequently change business requirements, because we said we are actually having tasks, then we are dividing them into groups. Then when you look at Kanban, here we have a visual style of project management that is actually used in organizations. We have fields such as software development and manufacturing and marketing. Then we have Scrumban, which is a hybrid of when we combine Scrum and Kanban, we are making the Scrumban methodology. So it combines both the capabilities of both Kanban and Scrum. Then we have extreme programming. In extreme programming, we have multiple short development cycles. We don't have longer cycles here. We have small development cycles that are many, and we have the main goal of the extreme programming is making sure that uh, we are improving the quality of a product. Is to make sure we are improving the quality of a product. So there are other alternatives to agile. We have the waterfall, we have the critical path, we have the critical chain, we have the Six Sigma, we have the lean project management as alternatives. Now, what are the tools that are used in project management? What are the tools that are used in project management? So we have tools like the Gantt chart. Okay. We have tools like logic network, the path chart, product breakdown structure. We have work breakdown structure, etc, etc, etc. So I'm going just to give a short description of these tools. And the first one is the Gantt chart tool. Okay. And normally, the Gantt chart uses bar charts. So it first came in 1917. That's really long. And I just want to show you, uh, okay, just want to show you how it actually looks. Huh? Yeah. So when you look at this is now a Gantt chart. It is going to show you the task that you have. It is going to show you the time frame, but it is going to use bars to show the progress of the project. So from this one, it began on this particular time and here. So as this one was going on, another project, the research began here. The research phase began there. The design, yeah. So it's actually showing you that. So there are a few things that we need to look at. When you look at this at a glance, the Gantt chart, you will be able to see what are the various activities that are in the particular project. You'll be able to see the activities that are in that particular project. Then you're going to see also, just at a glance, you will be able to see uh, when an activity began and when it ended. So you're going to see when an activity began and when it ended, just at a glance. These are things that you see at a glance. You see the activities, you see when the activity began and when it ended. Then you're going to see how long each of those activities is scheduled to happen. How long each of those activities is scheduled to happen. You will be able to see it in a Gantt chart at a glance. Again, you're going to see where activities are, where we have activity overlap. We'll be able to see where we have activity overlap, uh, where and when and by how much is an activity overlapping with another activity. Then it is also going to show you the start and the end of the whole project. Now just look at this one here, the example. So we have the planning task, the activity here, and we are seeing where it really began. Let me just pick a notation. It began here and it went progressively to the end of February here. That is planning. But before before this planning activity ended, there's another activity that began from the beginning of February and ended to mid-March. Now, already it has shown you what activity is there. It has shown you when the activity began and when the activity ended. It has shown you where activities are overlapping, like here we have an overlap. Even here we have an overlap. Now here we don't have an overlap. This one ended before this one began. Here we also don't have an overlap. So we have two overlaps, this one and this one. So this is what I was talking about. Now it can also show you the overall time or the ending time of the whole project. So the project began here early January, it ended mid July. So those are the things that you see in a Gantt chart at a glance. So we have the logic network also, and the logic network is going to indicate the sequence of activities maybe in a project over time. So it is going to show you which activity logically precedes or maybe follows another activity. So we can use it to see what milestones we have, what are the critical path of the project, and it is going to help us to get an understanding and also the dependencies in the project. Things like the time scale and the workflow that we really have. Okay, now this is how the logic network looks like. The logic path diagram. This is the logic path diagram. This is how it looks like. So we have the part chart also. Okay, this stands for program evaluation and review technique. Uh, okay, it was developed by the United States Department of Defense, the Navy's 1953, and it was actually part of the Polaris mobile submarine that was actually launching a missile project. So it is a method that we use to analyze the tasks that are going to be involved in making sure a given project is completed. What tasks are going to be involved, especially what time is needed to complete each of those tasks, what are the minimum time that is required to complete the entire project. Okay, so when you look at this model, it is going to focus in identifying the time that is required to complete the task. So you see here, just look at this. Excuse me. So let's look at this. We have task A, we have task B, we have task C. Now, from moving here at A to C, or from moving from A to C, we have this time frame that is needed. So you can also see D, yeah. So we are showing how long it takes for an activity to be completed. So we also have the product breakdown structure. Okay, so the product breakdown structure. So it is one that is actually exhaustive. It is also following a tree structure of the components that are actually making up the project deliverable. Now we normally arrange this one in a whole part partnership used in Prince 2. So these are not major one. We have the work breakdown structure also. Then we have the RAID log. Now you need to go into the details with the RAID log. The RAID log is actually a planning tool, and we use it to identify the risk, the assumptions, the issues, and even the dependencies that we have just at the beginning of the project. So there are four key areas that we focus on in the RAID log, and the first area is the risks. Now, risks are basically what events that might have an impact to the system if they occur. If, an event that if it occurs, it is going to affect the system, whether positive or negative. Then we have assumptions. So simply these are things that you assume. You assume they are in place. Not really, not because they are in place. You're just assuming. Then you have issues. Issues are the present matters. The present matters that we need to consider. The present matters that we need to address are what we call issues. Then we have dependencies. So dependencies, we can talk about maybe your project is depending on other projects, or maybe your project is depending on other things that triggers the project. So those are the project dependencies. They can be okay. They can be projects that are also beneficiaries of the output of your project. Uh, why should you maintain a RAID log? Okay, why should you maintain a RAID log? One, in the initial planning phase, a RAID log uh, is normally used in the initial planning phase to perform maybe a broad environment scan, look at the environment broadly, what are the factors that are actually affecting the system, both internal and external. Then you also use it to consolidate information that is going to help in regular reviews that are going to keep your project on track. So having a way of involving maybe the whole team to make sure they identify critical issues that have an impact on the project. So it is also used to assess changed project conditions. Yeah, it can also be a way of optimizing effort and also use optimizing the use of resources. It can be used to show stakeholders that the project we have right now is under control, everything is in place. Um, it can also be an evidence for input and even support from the management. Now, who can use the RAID log? The RAID log can be used by, it is actually relevant to all industries. It is relevant to maybe existing businesses and even starting businesses, to all levels of organizations and even to business processes. The RAID log is relevant to that.